What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, mailbag time. At John Middlekauff. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. I have a lot, so if I haven't got to yours, I'm gonna try to just keep banging them out over the weeks, the off season. We'll just keep up. Hopefully, I can get most of them before the draft, because obviously once that happens, then we have a whole new influx. Uh, and there's just if I don't get you by then, you probably get lost in the shuffle. So I got to start grinding over these next couple weeks. From Landon, love the content. Been a listener for years. Huge fan of NIL. I think it's great because college athletes can make money off their popularity and branding. My question is, how much money do you think football icons like Johnny Football and Reggie Bush would have made in their college careers? You know the irony of you saying off their branding and likeness, their image, that's name, image, and likeness. That's not what these guys are being paid to do. I think Deion Sanders said it. He's like, beside like Shador, who do you see in commercials? These guys are just being paid to play, which again, I don't care, but it's basically I'm just paying you to play football. I'm not using your name, image, and likeness anywhere. In terms of like commercials, like businesses, it's just like I have $500,000 for you here, so it's kind of out of whack. But in this system, I think both. I think they would have been them, Cam Newton. I mean, talk about it more Johnny Football and Reggie because they had a build up. Cam just had the 1 year with Auburn. Uh, I mean, he would have been asking for a raise by like week 4, but Johnny Football would have made a lot. I mean, after that, huge was his redshirt freshman year. Uh, After Reggie's sophomore, yeah, it would have been millions of dollars. As a former scout, how much of your time was spent traveling to watch players live versus evaluating them on film? And did you enjoy the travel side of the job, or do you prefer breaking down the tape? That's a good question. I would say I like driving. I can drive for hours. Now the problem in that business is, when I drove from Arizona State to Vegas or LA to Cal Poly to Cal and Stanford, you just spend a lot of time in your car where you can't get any work done. So it's like at least when you're flying around and in the airport, you can work. Like when you're driving, it's just kind of dead time. And it's just time when you are from 3 to 8 at night. If you're on a 5 hour drive, when you're just getting nothing done. Listen, we all have to commute at times and you waste an hour or two. But when you have consistent 4 or 5 hour drives, it's just a lot of extra time that you're going to have to spend when you get to your hotel. I'm very comfortable in a hotel. I can work in a hotel, turn the AC to about 65 degrees. I can, eat and snack and beef jerky and Subway sandwiches. Like I can live that life no problem. I mean, I don't think I'd want to do it as much now, but I didn't have a problem with that at all. I don't travel nearly as much now, obviously for this, but every once in a while, like go to the combine or go to the Super Bowl and just stay in a hotel. It's like I'm very comfortable in that environment. I'm very comfortable in a hotel room. And maybe it goes back to that. Uh, I don't know. And this is someone as a kid, like we didn't, it's not like this term gets thrown out a lot. Vacations. It's like, Maria's like, I need a vacation. Like when I was a kid, we didn't go on many vacations. Like, I don't think most people in society are just getting a couple vacations a year. Like kids get spring break or whatever. When I got spring break, I just was with my friends at home, or I'd go with my dad to work. So I didn't get to travel as much. Definitely didn't fly a lot, like throughout junior high and high school, like with my family. We didn't really go anywhere. Um, if anything, I went like with my friends when I got to go on quote like to Lake Tahoe or whatever. It was like to my friend's house. It wasn't ours. So maybe I value that ability to do that now. Sure, there's something psychological to it, but I love a good Marriott. As an aspiring NFL NBA content creator on YouTube, what tips do you suggest for getting started? How do you grow to have a following that you have now? Well, I've been in this business now, the podcast space for going on 9 years. I've been doing YouTube stuff for five plus. I've made my living off the internet for a long time. So I would say my number one piece of advice to any human, just do. Like you got to stop talking, you just got to do it. Some stuff is not going to work. The best part about the internet business, there aren't really that many rules. It's just do whatever you want to do. And if it works, double down. If it doesn't, stop. It's just it's the best. I mean, it's for all the industries we have in the world. I would say content creation is a little bit podcasting, YouTube, TikTok, you fucking name it. Kind of that world is still like the wild, wild west. It won't be forever, but right now, like you look at some of these worlds like banking or real estate and some of these things that are very, very corporate and you got to follow a bunch of rules. Ain't many rules. The number one rule you should follow is just try to do content as much as possible. I don't have to, I didn't have to do a podcast Sunday. This could have been my first podcast of the week. Record on Monday for Tuesday and just essentially take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off because I don't record anything Friday for Saturday. But I start questioning myself like, am I being lazy? And the answer I gave myself was, yeah, let's do something. So I recorded something. Like the best part about this world is like you don't have to do anything. Like you get to choose what you now once you got ads and people in business, like there are certain requirements based on certain deals, but like you kind of get to pick and choose when you want to do stuff. So pick and choose to do stuff more often. And then through that you can figure out what works and what doesn't. Since we're in the off season, can you walk us through the process, comma, activities, and schedule from the draft until the regular season game one? Players, coaches, and rookies. I've always wanted to know what's going on behind the scenes. Well, that's a long period of time. I'll just walk you through the next couple months. March 31st. So once the owners' meetings end and all the GMs and the coaches go back to their facilities, uh, I don't know whether they fly out Tuesday night or Wednesday, either by Thursday or Friday or maybe next Monday, you will start intense draft meetings of taking everything that you have gathered since the combine at the pro days, all the information, and really hammer home the end of your draft board. Now, your coaches will be involved. They will have worked guys out. They will have evaluated players on film. So their opinions will come into it, the coordinators, the position coaches, and you will all work to get your draft board situated over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. And like I know Veach and the guys in Kansas City, they spend a lot of time in that room anytime there's a question or an argument on a guy watching games together as a group. And they just kind of work their way through it. Some teams do less of that. So every team is a little different. And then you just set your draft board and the draft comes. Obviously, you pick the players. And then within, I don't know the exact time, usually this after not the first weekend, but the second weekend, you have a rookie mini camp where those guys, your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, uh, all the guys you just drafted, all undrafted free agents, and then a bunch of like random tryout guys, and you just run pretty discombobulated practice. And over the course of that time, your OTAs phase one, but it's really just working out. Guys are in town working out. They're in there during over the course of April, and you're just kind of all integrating together that leads to OTAs. And OTAs, for a place like Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo or the Rams or the Niners. Niners have a lot of new players, but some of these teams with like pretty established rosters, it's I wouldn't say the Eagles. It's a 3-day work week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And a lot of times you're getting 3-day weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Monday's relatively chill. You work out some guys who are on the street, maybe older free agents during that time. But when I worked for the Eagles, like we were playing a bunch of golf. They weren't crazy long days, like 8 to 3 or 4. Um, Now it's intense for the rookies and some of these teams, like if you're the Titans or a new coach, Pete Carroll. Obviously, some days are longer, like the Chiefs and the Eagles. Like certain teams, it just depends where you're at. And then you basically do OTAs, which are just, I mean, kind of stupid at this point with all the rules. Till summer break, which is about give or take 35, 40 days where you just do whatever the hell you want. A lot of these guys, a lot of coaches are rich. They go to cool places, and then you reconvene for training camp. I'm not going to do a training camp breakdown right now, but the off season, once the draft ends, becomes pretty chill. Becomes, I would say, very relaxed. It's a good time, for like me. I'm going to try to get out and interview some of these guys during the months of May and June because it's very relaxed time. The spirits are very high for all these teams. Who do you think is the best contender to go from worst to first in their division this year? I mean, it probably have to be the 49ers. Just because when you look around, like, is it going to be the Carolina Panthers? Is it going to be the New York Giants? Uh, even the New England Patriots, who could have a massive bounce back, like, they're not going to have a better record than the Bills. So I think the most realistic team would have to be the Niners. Let me just look at the standings really quick. Standings. Yeah, the Patriots, even if they were to get a wild card, they're not taking the Bills out. Browns, no chance. Titans, feels hard pressed. Raiders, no chance. Giants, definitely no chance. I do think the Bears could be a lot better, but I mean their division 15 wins, 14 wins, and 11 wins. So they combine for 30. They combine for 40 wins, the three teams they got to take out. Saints, I'd say probably no chance. It feels like the Niners would be the only guess you could have that could be real. Good question. If you were going to build an NFL team, wouldn't you build through the trenches? This seems like an obvious concept, but the bottom 12 teams in the NFL seem to constantly be rebuilding over and over. Are these coaches and GMs scared of getting fired? And that's why they bring in new flashy skill position players? Would you approach it as a GM? Well, I think if your fundamental football belief is to draft big guys, I think most people say that, right? When they get introduced as a head coach, when they get introduced as a GM, when they do interviews, like we believe in the line of scrimmage. But then you're on the clock. Let's say you're the Cowboys, right? You're at pick 12. It's like you should probably take an offensive or defensive lineman. Zach Martin just retired. You've just lost some defensive players over the course of the last couple of years. Like you could definitely add a young, talented guy to go with Micah, especially a D tackle. All these GMs often also say is like take the best player on the board. So if we get to pick 12 and the best player on our board by far is Ashton Jeanty and let's say McMillan from Arizona, who I saw kind of went viral because someone got him for saying he doesn't watch film. It's like, guys, a lot of college players don't watch a lot of film outside of the coaching staff. Like he's not it's not abnormal. Now, will he develop into that? Time will tell. But like I don't think he's alone. But if those are the best two players on the draft and you don't have a defensive or offensive lineman on the same level as those guys, that's when often you get in trouble is when you reach for a need. So I do think it's easy for us to criticize them, and then when they take a need and it works, they look like a genius. And when they take a skill guy and it backfires, they look like an idiot. It's really, really difficult to draft. It is. It's so much easier for us all, including them, to play Monday morning quarterback, to look back a couple of years ago and like, great pick, awful pick. You don't have any of that information in a month. You can only go off what you are projecting. Then in 2 years, you got a bunch of film and certain guy's been arrested and broke his leg. And you're like, God, I wouldn't have fucked with that guy. It's so easy to say after the fact. And I'm as guilty as anybody. But I think if you just draft good players, no one's really going to complain. Look at the Eagles last year. They desperately needed DBs and they drafted the two DBs. Well, you know what turned out? Both the DBs were sweet. What if those DBs sucked? It's like, those guys can't play. DeJean's a stiff white guy. Mitchell, overrated small school guy. He'd be getting crushed. The key is to hit on the picks. Keys to hit on the picks. The Bengals took Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell, which if I just polled every GM, hey, star tackle, star wide receiver, which one are you going to take? Take the star tackle. But if that guy's Jamar Chase, you don't feel really bad about it. Especially in your offensive line still sucks. The finals for March Mania are here, and the only thing for sure is it's the last time you can bet on college basketball this season. Get in on all the action, expected and unexpected, with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get 150 bonus bets instantly. Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. I was wondering your thoughts on the Ravens' chances to finally make it over the hump. I feel like our roster is stacked and can beat any team. I know Lamar has been disappointing in the playoffs, but I think the improvements we've seen the last two seasons have been big. Do you think we will win the Super Bowl this year, or Lamar will continue to struggle in the playoffs? I'll say this if I'm the Bills or the Ravens. You keep giving yourself enough swings, eventually you're going to hit a home run. Eventually it's going to break your way. I've seen it play out with other teams. You know, Lamar and Josh are clearly the next two best quarterbacks in the league. Peyton Manning forever couldn't get over the hump against the Patriots. And then he finally did. And then he went to three more Super Bowls. It's like one of those two teams is, I would say in the next 2 years, hell, I would say this year, it's a coin flip for the Chiefs. Are the Chiefs going to go to 6 Super Bowls in 7 years? Yeah, they have one of the best coaches of all time. They have a great quarterback. But just history would tell us Belichick didn't go to the Super Bowl and Brady every fucking year. He got beat occasionally by Flacco, by Manning. Like it's just gonna by Mark Sanchez. So eventually it's just gonna be like, oh, Bills Ravens in the AFC Championship game. Bound to happen. This gonna be your year? I don't know. I thought 2 years ago was your year. If Lamar keeps playing at elite level and you guys just keep building good teams like you've done for feels like most of my adult life, yeah, you're gonna have a shot. In your opinion, what do you think was the best decade of football? I'm 24, lifelong Pats fan, so I grew up watching the dynasty in New England. But I love watching old highlights to see how much different things were. My personal favorite was the 2010s. Uh, I would say the best decade of football for my personal enjoyment would probably be the tens, or excuse me, the zero, the just the 2000s. Uh, it still had like a 90s, 80s, 70s level of you could get killed. Like it was so physical and intense that only gladiators could do it. But there was still such a high level of like Brady in his prime, Manning in his prime, Favre was still playing. Breeze really hit the scene. Philip Rivers, Big Ben came, Eli. So you just had pretty high level quarterback play, especially in the playoffs. And there was like this gladiator element. I think the league was deeper than it was definitely when I was really, really young. The salary cap, I think, changed the world of parity. But like, you know, you came over the middle, John Lynch or Brian Dawkins or some of the Troy Polamalu and Ray Lewis. There was just an element of this is crazy. I mean, These guys are nuts, and there's still an element of that, but the violence has just been officiated out of the game because they don't want to get sued, which I totally understand. If I was in their shoes, I'd do the same thing. But there was a level of violence up until whatever the mid 2010s that just doesn't exist anymore. That I'm not ashamed to say I miss sometimes. And I think some of these players get away with poor play, quarterbacks specifically, that wouldn't have been tolerated back then because you would have got guys killed. You wouldn't have been able to play. And I do agree with Brady. Mahomes, Josh, Lamar, these guys would have played in any era. But some of these random guys that are able to excel, like could Gardner Minshew have played in 2004? No, I do not believe that. I don't think he would still be in the league. That's not. I'm not trying to take a shot at the guy. I just think you watch him play and he kind of little gunslinger. Like I don't think it's possible. He would have got people killed. So I'd go my personal favorite, the 2000s. Do you think as more and more different head coaches and GMs win Super Bowls, Shanahan and Lynch will slowly become an overrated coach and GM combination? It always seems like he has a stacked roster and just coaches just like other coaches such as Sirianni. But the difference is that he can never take it all the way home. Hell, Zach Taylor made a Super Bowl and Doug Peterson won one. Lynch overpaid Jimmy G. He used two first rounders on Trey Lance, three, and could have whiffed on Mac Jones, got lucky with a limited seventh rounder. Yeah, I mean, these guys just, until you win a Super Bowl, you always have that hanging over your head. And how close they've been, they're going to pay their quarterback. Um, yeah, they will get criticized. But here's the thing: Kyle Shanahan could have two awful seasons. He would immediately get hired. Immediately. It's like Andy Reid. Andy Reid got fired in Philadelphia. There were three or four teams lined up to hire the guy. John Lynch, is he overrated, underrated? Like, who's like his resume speaks for itself. He's drafted a lot of really good players. And Jimmy Garoppolo was not necessarily overpaid. Won a lot of games with him. Now, was Jimmy Garoppolo a franchise quarterback? It turns out he wasn't because he got injured a lot and then he kind of diminished as a player. But like when they paid him, what were they supposed to do? They just made the Super Bowl. If Tua had just taken the Dolphins to the Super Bowl or Trevor Lawrence, I would have been like, yeah, I have no problem with them signing that contract. Like those guys couldn't piss a drop in the playoffs, especially Tua. It's like you can't. Jimmy Garoppolo is like making plays in the playoffs and in huge games to get them the number one seed in 2019. So they were kind of like, what are they going to do? And then he just kind of fell off a cliff because he was injured a lot. But I don't have as big of an issue with them paying Jimmy Garoppolo. That was not the reason. Like that didn't derail their team at all. The Trey Lance thing is a way bigger issue, but they got out of it because of Brock Purdy. Now it's like Purdy's going to be judged differently because he's going to be paid a lot of money. Question for the bag. Does the height of Jeanty really concern you enough to hesitate on him being one of the best running backs in the draft? I understand he's only 5'8", but what about backs like Frank Gore? I'm from the Bay and had the privilege of meeting Frank and Willis at a birthday party in the San Jose Hills. He was listed at 5'9", but in person didn't seem taller than 5'7". Tackle breaking ability like Gore. You're making my point though. Frank Gore, who's I mean one of the more consistent players of his generation, was picked 65. I've never said that Ashton Jeanty isn't one of, if not the best running back in this draft. My issue is, are you going to take a running back who's 5'8" in the top 10 when you could find a starter, no problem in this draft? It is considered one of, if not the deepest running back drafts in years in the second or third round. Aren't you better off taking a defensive lineman in the first round and then taking the third or fourth running back in the second round? That's my whole argument. I'm with you. He's not going to be a bust or a great player. His height is not going to determine his success. He can excel and be a Pro Bowler at 5'8". 100%. But am I taking a 5'8" guy in the top 10 at running back? That's where I struggle with. And I'm with you. Frank Gore was a stud, but he was a third round pick. Now, part of that was because of his knee injuries, but that's my argument. Why don't you just draft a Frank Gore in the third round and take other positions in the other rounds? So when I look at the 49ers who took Frank Gore in 2005, they took Alex Smith with the first round pick. They took David Bass with their second round pick. I think played a decent amount. He was on the team for 5 years. So they got their starting quarterback and their starting center, and then their starting running back in the third round. That's my whole argument here. Take take get your starting tight end, Tyler Warren, and then take whoever the fourth best running back or the seventh best running back in the third round, who might be the next Frank Gore. Happens all the time. Alvin Kamara, third round. Nick Chubb, second round. LaShawn McCoy, second round. You don't need, unless the guy's like Adrian Peterson. I'm just Saquon Barkley. I'm just not taking the guy that high. DMing you from my fiance's Instagram account. I think I have a great addition for Fugazi Friday. Decorative pillows. We currently have 7 decorative pillows on our bed, and none of them are ever used. What is the point of having and paying for 7 pillows to take them off and use your actual pillows when you sleep? They are annoying. I hear you, brother. The one thing is one thing ladies bring to our lives is the feng shui, the aura, as the kids say, that the vibes of the house. Because when they don't exist, my house looks much worse in terms of decorations and like I never had any pillows on my bed beside the ones I used to sleep. And I think my mom, before I moved to Arizona, like the only reason my bed had like the extra pillows because like my mom bought them for me. But there are things, I'm with you. They just are there for looks. And how often, even when you bring people over to your house, like friends, they're not hanging out in your bedroom. But maybe this is an old school thing my dad taught me. Like one thing I am good at and I'm disciplined with is making the bed every day. It's kind of my job. Or it's just I just end up doing it. And I don't mind doing it. It's like get out of bed, make the bed. Your bed does look better with the pillows, but I'm with you. When you sleep, we have like a chair next to the bed that you just put all the pillows in. And then when you make the bed, you just grab all the pillows and put them back on. Like you said, one, they're not comfortable. So even if you wanted to lay on them, they're always like harder. Uh, they do improve the look. And that is something that ladies bring to our life is they add the vibes of the house would look worse without them, even if these things that they bring to the table aren't functional. Because you're from a functionality standpoint, they bring the pillows do nothing. You never use them. You only take and subtract them from the bed when you actually use the bed. Sometimes they go on the floor and then they get dirty. It's kind of gross. But when they're all on the bed does, in theory, depending on the color of the pillows and the duvet and everything, look better. But I hear you. I hear you. That's big pillows got us by the balls.